Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, this is the last lecture. So, over the last 4 weeks, we have talked a lot about various guidelines, good practices from India and abroad. I have tried to elaborately discuss about the steps of conducting audit and how to take necessary steps for retrofitting solutions to make a place universally accessible. But one thing that we absolutely need to understand is that every situation is unique. Every building, every premises has its own challenge. So what we need to do, we need to think out of the guidelines sometimes. Like while we give the recommendations, it is essential to sometimes modify the design solutions based on the ground realities. So there actually lies the role of the architects and urban planners and the civil engineers. So the reason why we floated this course, so that we understand that what exactly we need to do, where we need to make some reasonable accommodation, where we need to go for to make the building visitable, where we can have barrier-free environment, and where maybe we can aspire for universal design. So that call an architect or a civil engineer or an urban planner needs to take. We need to actually focus on the usability of a building or a space or a system, a product or website. So let's innovate, let's think beyond just the standards and try to understand where is the problem, where is the barrier, and solve them. So in the last lecture, we have taken the views from some people who are into it, who are working with, who have an exposure in this field. We will be listening to these people, and that's all. So thank you. Today I have with me a very special guest, Professor A.K. Gupta, a very senior professor from the Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Kharagpur. He is currently the Dean of Infrastructure in IIT Kharagpur. So, Professor Gupta, I would first of all many thanks for agreeing to come to our studio. So now this is the course that we have offered for on inclusive planning and universal design. So this is mainly targeted for making people aware of the various universal design standards and inclusive planning norms in built environment as well as in the open environment. So as a professor of civil engineer and also as Dean Infrastructure, how relevant do you think will be this course for campus planning or for building planning or for city planning?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Haimanti. Thank you for inviting us. This is, in fact, that this is a very unique course. First time I have noticed this in IIT Kharagpur, that somebody have thought for universal planning and design. Before that, we make lot of infrastructure from starting of the inception of IIT Kharagpur, but we have never thought to even to make a ramp, even to think about it that we should provide the vertical lift. This was later on we thought that this is because, and somebody, if it is sick, we cannot take him to the second floor because there's no ramp, there's no vertical lift. So after introducing such an important course, universal planning and design, then we have noticed last few years we have observed this, that how important is this to provide the facilities for the even means all parts of the society. So it is creating the inclusiveness, like how everyone should be part of the development, not only like suppose we design the building only like the people which have certain age group, like with certain people. Now this give us the idea like this should be provide the facilities for entire, whether it is children, whether it is the senior citizen, right, entire community should be take part of this. So when we, what is the major concept of this is not just a technical exercise. This is the entire community should be come forward. Socially universal design ensure equity and dignity, making public life richer by ensuring that no one is left out of everyday experiences. More important, universal planning design is not just a technical exercise. Right? It is a statement of values. It says that environments are not complete unless they please and invite every person to participate fully. I have noticed in the all the platform. Even earlier, you can see the railway station. We are afraid. We are looking for the police to to take our luggage. Now even we have a heavy luggage. We have a very good vertical lifts. We have a staircase which is easily you can stand, and whatever the platform you can reach. So even the people who was not like having the physically fit, they are also now feeling I am also the part of this society. So this concept is a really wonderful. As far the institute is concerned, we have incorporated even not only the earlier buildings but new building. We are incorporating these features in the beginning only, so that it should not be felt like we are this is the later on we have added, because later on where we are adding there will be some gaps. So let us plan from the day one that even the door should be comfortable, even the with the like even small minute thing also, when we are opening the handle, how comfortable is that. Now the sensorless doors are coming, we just stand, they will recognize our face and the door will open. So this is we call as a barrier free environment. This should not be any barrier for this. So as future professionals shaping the built environment for upcoming generation, it is worth asking ourselves at every stage of design and execution, does this space welcome everyone, or does it leave someone behind? If it welcomes one and all, then we are not just creating a structure, we are building communities that reflects fairness, empathy, and the vision. That is the essence of universal design. If you observe closely, it appears that the entire philosophy arises from Santi mantra. So even historically, if you see, even in the Sanskrit, there is a one slope. Om sarve bhavanti sukhna, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kisyat dukh bhag bhave. So this means may all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all see what is auspicious, may no one suffer. So this concept of universal design is incorporating all the features which was even our predecessor have thought for that. So this resonates well with the concept of universal design, because the primary idea is that all people regardless of age, ability or condition should have equal opportunity to live life with comfort and dignity. And first point, we should start this concept from the educational institute, because here all kinds of the age group people are in the campus, and particularly we have the students which is starting around 18 years of age, they are coming to campus, and somebody have physically handicapped. So how we can make them happy that they are also the part of the society, not only the hostel or the academic building, but also the park, but also even the washroom. So everywhere in the department also we are creating the barrier free bathroom, toilets, academic classrooms, so they can easily, even in we have a academic complex in Nalanda where we have even the physically handicapped person can go directly to the class with the full support. So we have created everywhere this barrier-free environment. So I congratulate Dr. Haimanti for such a wonderful design, and Dr. Haimanti was also Associate Dean Infrastructure, where she has already incorporated this feature in all our planning. So thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Professor Gupta, for such encouraging words. I think, Professor Gupta, you very wonderfully highlighted the issues at three levels. One is you talked at the philosophical level, where you talked about social inclusion, which is absolutely essential so that we leave no one behind, which is the United Nations principle. Second, you talked at the conceptual level because you used a word called people are afraid. So it is not only the physical barrier, it's also the psychological barrier.
True.
If you remember the participants that we discussed about the various types of barriers, and when we specifically mentioned there are physical barriers, there are psychological barriers and social barriers. And at the third level, which probably he is encountering every day, that is the practical, pragmatic problem that how do you retrofit an existing building? Because as he very rightly said, IIT is an old building. So how he is as a DN infrastructure is facing the everyday challenges to have retrofitting solutions to make the existing old building accessible. That's something very important. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Sir.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Professor Deepa Dubey, Dean Rajiv Gandhi School of Intellectual Property Law and Chairperson, Center of Studies and Research for Differently Abled, IIT Kharagpur. Today I am here to speak very briefly about the significant concept of disability. Now we must understand that disability is a very important aspect of human diversity and an important issue in the context of human rights, social justice and development. Understanding its importance, its significance helps us to promote inclusive society, helps us to develop equality and dignity for all individuals. Now, people with disabilities often face lots of challenges in their daily lives, whether in the community, in their immediate families, or in the state, not just because of their impairments, but because of largely social barriers and discrimination. Some of the key challenges, if we intend to outline, the first one that comes is of accessibility. There is largely a lack of accessible infrastructure in public spaces, in transport, digital platforms, which seriously limits the mobility and the participation of these persons. Similarly, when it relates to education, employment, people with disabilities often face difficulties, whether in terms of getting admission in schools or in continuing with their classes and higher education, as well as getting jobs. There is a whole lot of stigma, a whole lot of discrimination and exclusion when it comes with disabilities. And it is specifically to address this particular issue which confronts the society that India enacted the Right of Persons with Disabilities Act, a 2016 legislation which has replaced the previous Persons with Disabilities Act of 1995. Now, this enactment is essentially to harmonize the Indian law with the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, to which India is a signatory. Now, there has been a paradigm shift in the way this particular piece of legislation has discussed or included disability not as charity or welfare, but as a matter of rights, dignity and equal opportunity. If we just look into the objects of the Act, the objects are primarily fourfold. One is recognition of disability as a primary human rights issue, moving beyond the medical understanding or the charity-based approaches to disability. The second aspect is ensuring equality and non-discrimination by prohibiting unfair treatment for persons with disabilities in all matters for that, whether education, whether employment, healthcare, access to access to public services or political participation. Similarly, legal entitlements for these people are very important for social security, for skill development and effective participation in society. And the last but the most important is promoting accessibility and inclusivity in all walks of life, recognizing that barriers, not impairments, are the real obstacles. Now, this legislation has recognized a wide variety of disabilities, whereas in the previous act it was limited to just about 7 categories. In the present legislation, it has expanded to nearly 21 categories of disability or disability conditions like autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, thalassemia, hemophilia, and multiple disabilities. Now, what the RPWD Act does is provide a comprehensive rights framework, and that is the most important and emphasizable aspect of this piece of legislation, where it guarantees right to equality and non-discrimination and prohibition of discrimination in all matters of employment, education, access to justice, so on and so forth. It guarantees right to education for persons with benchmark disabilities who are entitled to free education up to 18 years of age, as well as something which is presently there, reservation in higher educational institutions, reservation of seats for students with disabilities. Similarly, in government institutions and establishments, there are reservation for jobs for people with benchmark disabilities, as well as private establishments are expected to adopt inclusive practices and ensure that they are able to practice inclusivity in their way of operations. In the matters of health, right to appropriate health care, insurance schemes, and security benefits are guaranteed under the legislation. Similarly, accessibility rights as a justiciable right, mandating barrier-free access to public buildings, transportation, information, and communication technology. Now, while we speak of all these rights, the domain of universal planning and design, it is one of the most transformative aspects of this particular right, and it emphasizes on universal design, implying designing products, environments, programs, and services which are open to all persons, usable to all persons of all categories without any need of adaptation. So, the Act mandates that all spaces, it need not be public spaces, all buildings, transport systems, websites, etc., must be accessible, and it is not a special provision but has to be a universal right which is benefiting all sections of the society, which includes definitely persons with disability, it includes children, it includes elderly, and it includes all those who might require that. So, therefore, urban planning, architecture, and technology development are very significant for the purpose of knowledge, for the purpose of discussion, and for the purpose of implementation if we are to integrate this inclusive vision. So, therefore, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act has shifted the disability discourse in India from welfare to rights, from charity to empowerment, and universal design and planning must be seen as an investment in a more equitable society where barriers are systematically dismantled and every individual, regardless of their abilities, must be able to live a respected life, a life of dignity, a life of autonomy, and a life of full participation. Thank you.
Hello, I am Purvita Shamanto. I was a Prime Minister's Research Fellow and have completed my PhD from the Department of Architecture and Regional Planning at IIT Kharagpur. I am also the teaching assistant for this NPTEL course on inclusive planning and universal design. Recently, I have joined the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs as a consultant. So it gives me immense pleasure to be associated with this particular course because its relevance is not limited to the academics alone. It has direct bearing on how our cities and the public spaces function. The idea of inclusive planning and universal design is to create environments that can be accessed, understood, and used by all people, irrespective of their age, gender, ability, or social background. Now, for architects, engineers, and urban planners, this question is central to their professional responsibility. Now, for architects, inclusive design means looking beyond the aesthetics or the structural efficiency. So, it is about ensuring that a building welcomes all the users, whether it's a child, an elderly person, or someone with a disability. So a ramp is not just an addition; it's a statement that the space belongs to everyone. So this course helps architects learn how to integrate such features from the very beginning of the design rather than just as an afterthought. Now, for engineers, universal planning highlights the importance of detail and practicality. So, it is not enough for infrastructure to be strong and functional, it must also be usable by people of diverse needs. Now, just think of a pedestrian crossing, the slope, the tactile paving, the signal timing. All are engineering decisions that determine whether the crossing is safe for a wheelchair user or a person with visual impairment. Now, this course brings into those considerations in the forefront. For urban planners, the scope is even broader. Now, cities are growing rapidly, and the responsibility of planners is to shape the environments that are equitable and inclusive. So, this means that planning road networks, public transport, and open spaces are required in a way that allows equal access for everybody. Now, as you have seen in the course, the Inclusive City Framework has been a step towards helping the Indian cities become more equitable and accessible. And I had the opportunity to be a part of this particular development. So, key areas included housing, infrastructure, urban mobility, digital governance, and also the public spaces. So, all are assessed through a set of indicators that monitor progress towards achieving an inclusive city. Now, in today's context, when India is aiming to build smart and sustainable cities, it's this inclusivity concept is not just an option; rather, it is essential. So, the real life applicability of this course is immense. Just imagine that when you are designing a particular bus stop, is it just enough to just understand the traffic flow? Rather, it's important to understand that how a person in a wheelchair or an elderly person will use it. So maybe giving a step is not enough. Rather, it needs to be inclusive in a way that everybody, be it the elderly, the women, the child, whoever it is, can use it properly. So this course brings a lot of considerations in the real life, and I encourage everybody to take up this particular course. And thank you all.
Hello everyone. I am very happy to share my thoughts on why this NPTEL course on inclusive planning and universal design is such an important initiative for all of us in the field of architecture, engineering and urban planning. In today's world where our cities and buildings are becoming increasingly complex, it is no longer enough to design only for majority. We must design for everyone, like children, elderly person and person with diverse disabilities, so that no one is left behind. This course addresses exactly that need, and that is why I feel it is so significant. By way of my introduction, my name is Umesh Kumar. I am currently working as an assistant professor at Lovely Professional University. Earlier, I was a research scholar in Department of Architecture and Regional Planning at IIT Kharagpur under the supervision of Professor Haimanti Banerjee, and I also worked as a teaching assistant over there. One of the most rewarding experiences during that time was assisting in teaching of the subject Universal Design. It gave me a strong foundation to understand how accessibility and inclusivity can and must become central to our profession. My PhD research is focused on enabling inclusive learning environment by enhancing accessibility and inclusion for children with disability in India. Through this research, I am working to develop a framework that helps to evaluate and improve accessibility in schools. Because schools are not just buildings, they are the place where inclusion truly begins. If children with disabilities are excluded in the classroom, they are excluded from the society at large. Alongside my PhD work, I had the privilege to working with my supervisor on a very meaningful collaboration between IIT Kharagpur and UN Habitat India. This project, Enhancing Accessibility and Inclusion in Schools, aimed at sensitizing all stakeholders in the school ecosystem like students, parents, teachers, special educators and administrators towards the idea of barrier-free learning environment. We conducted pilot training programs in Delhi schools, developed accessibility toolkit and e-learning modules, and created knowledge products that are now being scaled to influence policy and practice. What was truly impactful for me was seeing how even small interventions like awareness sessions or accessibility design checklists can open up opportunities for children who are otherwise excluded from the mainstream education. This brings me to why this NPTEL course on inclusive planning and universal design is so important. As architects, engineers, and universal urban planners, the decision we make every day shape the life of people. A ramp not provided, a footpath not designed properly, a school without accessible toilets. These are not small oversights. They are barriers that prevent millions from participating equally in the society. Inclusion is not charity. It is a right as recognized by the Right of Person with Disability Act 2016 and reinforced globally through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the agenda of leaving no one behind. Inclusion also goes far beyond adding a ramp or lift to a building. It is about reimagining the built environment so that in everyone, whether they are children, elderly persons, or people with different kind of disabilities, can access, participate, and thrive. For professionals like us, that means learning to diagnose barriers, understanding user diversity, and applying guidelines like the Harmonized Guidelines for Universal Accessibility in India 2021 in practice. It also means developing empathy, not just technical skill, so that our designs reflect dignity, safety, and independence for all. As a faculty member now, I see it as my responsibility to carry forward this message. I want my students to internalize the idea that accessibility is not an optional add-on but a fundamental quality of good design. Through studio projects, role-playing simulations, and fieldwork, I try to make them experience the reality of barriers so that when they go out as professionals, inclusive planning comes naturally to them. To conclude, I would say that this NPTEL course on inclusive planning and universal design is not just another academic offering. It is a step towards building a more inclusive society. I feel privileged to be connected to this initiative, and I encourage everyone to engage deeply with the course material because the knowledge and the perspective you gain here can directly shape the future of our built environment and our communities. Together, we can work towards creating built environments, cities, and societies where no one is left behind. Thank you.
The Rights of Persons with Disability Act acknowledges 21 different types of disabilities. As architects and urban planners, how many of them are we really able to decipher and understand? For how many of them are we able to understand what their accessibility needs are? And how much are we able to understand to translate these accessibility needs into the built environment? This course developed by IIT Kharagpur on universal design and planning is very critical in understanding and addressing this particular aspect. We are putting in so much of investment in creating buildings and urban infrastructure, in developing our urban areas, and it is the critical time to actually make it right. Including universal design principles is the imperative which any architect and urban planner needs to follow. It is in alignment with the SDG goals, it is in alignment with the new agenda, it is in alignment with our national commitments. And more so, it is the right thing to do with more than 70% of the population in India predicted to be requiring universal accessibility in the coming days. The course is very comprehensive and it will give an overall idea from designing to monitoring to any architecture student or urban practitioner. It includes the national commitments, it includes the policies and models, it includes the harmonized guidelines adherence, it includes the Able India framework, all of which will not only help you to design but also help you to improvise your design and make it more universally accessible in future. I hope that all the urban practitioners, architecture and planning students take this up and adopt the ethos of universal design and inclusion in their design and practice. Thank you.